So the topic that I chose for my research was multiple sclerosis. And I chose this because one day I was hanging out with my family, and one of my cousins has multiple sclerosis, and a family came in and sat next to us, and the whole time they kind of just kept staring at him. So I decided to find out more about this disease, and this seemed like a perfect opportunity to do so. So what is multiple sclerosis? Multiple sclerosis is a chronic disease that slowly erodes the communication between the brain and the rest of the body as it forces the immune system to corrode away the kind of the protective layer that surrounds the nerves of the body. And this affects the communication that the brain sends to the rest of the body. So it has no way of knowing, how to walk or, talk. Even talking has even when a person talks, they have a slight stutter. And it is very much noticeable to people that don't know. So if a person usually finds out right away, that this person has something wrong with him. And MS was officially discovered in the 19th century, but there was definitely records before. And there has been no cure discovered till this date, but so many people have been working on, even like simple ways to make the disease better. For instance, my cousin went to Mexico to get a stem cell treatment that cost tens of thousands of dollars, but anything to help at this point because there's no disease. I mean, there's no cure, and the only step doctors really like take to help is a number of medications or procedures, but they only slow down the progression so far. The first form of MS is relapse and remitting, and according to the Multiple Sclerosis Society, 85% of patients are diagnosed with this form of the disease. It may cause a person to lose power, eyesight, and other senses for a short period of time, and then the after the period of time is up, they usually start to come back. But over the years, as you can see in the chart, it gets worse and worse. The recoveries are less, and as time goes on, you are pretty much stuck with the relapses. And one of the sources that I chose was the National Multiple Sclerosis Society, and on their website they stated that inflammatory attacks on the myelin, the layers of the insulating membrane surrounding the nerve fibers in the central nervous system, as well as the nerve fibers themselves. They state that they basically just state that in this form, like the the protective layer around the nervous system almost heals after a period of time. And since this type of disease is kind of an on and off thing, it leaves the patient with more scars in the brain than the other form. And after the attack is over on the body, the body goes into a remission period, and most of the symptoms usually disappear, but some after a while tend to carry on for the remainder of one's lifetime. The second form of MS is the progressive form. This form is much more difficult to treat. One of the best ways to help is exercise, and doctors say that usually keep moving around as much as possible at this point. And there's not really any getting better with this type of disease so far, though. But patients with the progressive form of MS tend to just accept the fact and try to make their environment safer, and make their life like easier any way possible. Like I was reading when I was doing the research that one of the patients got her car modified for her to be able to drive with only her hands. She added a bunch of knobs and everything, to like express the brake pedal and the gas pedal, and she said that she was able to drive daily, and she had no problem with it. And going to physical therapy is what doctors mostly recommend nowadays, though, to help. And the picture shows a bunch of different exercises that you could try to participate in. And doctors usually say to start the exercises earlier than later, because later on you're not able to complete like all of the exercise that you might have been able to one day. So what I learned with the interview with my cousin Kenny was that even though we are cousins, there was still a lot that I did not know about him and his life. So he admitted that the disease affected his family negatively, in a major way. He needs help completing almost any normal task. So he states that everywhere he goes, people are always staring at him, and like he's some sort of monster. And those are his exact words right there. He explained how he hates telling people to hang out with him anymore, or come over, because people always tend to think of him as a responsibility. Nobody wants to for him to fall and break his arm or anything while they were around, because then they're gonna feel like it was their fault for not taking care of him. So that's why he told me that there's only a handful of people that he can tell to come hang out with, and all that. He also told me that earlier in his life he would have suicidal thoughts because of how drastic the change actually was. He stated that he was actually diagnosed with the disease when he was 22, but he said he felt the effects of it when he was 21, like in later months of 21. And he said that at first he didn't want to, believe that something was actually happening to him. You're at the age where you think you're basically bulletproof. So that's what he stated. He stated that he would, keep putting it off to visit a doctor, to get his MRIs done and all that. And he was like, I couldn't believe it. And since his family is well off, they have tried like pretty much everything. They have flown him out to Germany, to try certain procedures and treatments. And just believe it was last year, we went to Mexico to go get a stem cell treatment done where I believe it was 150 million stem cells were injected into his body uh, through an IV to make his uh, condition better. And they were supposed to, those stem cells were supposed to go into the body and repair the damaged cells and take over, basically. And after the treatment, he was supposed to get two more done, but since his family hasn't had time, they haven't been able to keep up with them. But after that one treatment, he was able to regain some of the lost power, and he was able to regain some vision and some stability issues that he was having earlier. So the conclusion of this PowerPoint is that it is not curable, it is life-threatening, and I believe that more awareness should be spread because of how little number of people know about the disease. You go around, if you ask about, I believe, like from what I've seen, I asked around 10 people if they knew about the disease, and all they could think of that it was just all they said was it's probably just a disease, and they didn't know any more information on it. They didn't even know if it was a chronic disease or a normal, a less life-threatening disease. And the MS usually decreases the lifespan by about 5 to 10 years in most cases. And the hardest challenge of all, people say, is adapting. And once you adapt, they say that it's not as bad as it was before. So this was my presentation, and thank you for listening.